Back, everybody. I have now unmuted myself and the whole universe of sound has opened up for everybody. Welcome back to The Sovereign Way. My name is Elizabeth. My job is to steward you into another hour of becoming. And we're specifically playing in a teaching series called Becoming Sovereign in Wealth. And this is the second session in that magical experience. The game is to exhilarate the mind, to shake up the knowing that's in your mind and in your heart, to exhilarate the mind and to accelerate your spiritual wealth. So last week we started by unwrapping the nature of Manna. We asked the question, what is Manna? And we looked at the process of converting Manna from spiritual potential into tangible real life resource. We looked at the quantum phenomena of light and the relationship between source, spirit, and substance. And so as we discovered the word Manna, or Hebrew or Aramaic, probably Christy can correct me on that, but the meaning is, what is it? Manna means, what is it? Now, when you ask, what is it? You are calling for God to reveal what it is. So metaphysically, what you're doing is lovingly commanding spirit to form substance and to reveal itself through the fabric of creation. That's the metaphysical energetic effect of saying, what is it? So that the form of wealth can be made known to you in the here and now. What is it? Is a magic spell that will activate this process. So that's why Manna is a spiritual potential that becomes the form that is desired and needed. So for the rest of this series, we're going to be using that magic spell. What is it? And we're going to be calling forth the true substance of wealth, including the parameters that corral that wealth to build its magnetism and to direct that wealth for impactful and long-lasting return. So we're saying that true sovereign wealth is greater than that fleeting, ephemeral experience of wealth in the moment. True sovereign wealth is something that has a long-lasting return. It's something that lasts, something that invests, something that becomes. So money, time, peace, opportunities to connect and commune in friendship, opportunities to have fun and serve and be significant in the lives of those you love. Wealth is both the harvest of fruit from past effort, and it's also the activator for future emergence. So get that wealth, therefore, is a dynamic between past and future. It's a present dynamic that connects past and future, as it is both the harvesting of fruit from past effort and the activator for future emergence. So you must think about wealth as a dynamic living thing that is both a cause and an effect of divine experience. Got it? Got it. So we discussed last week that the mechanics of converting Manna into actual resource are basically, number one, knowing what? Not knowing worldly things like I am going to make $10,000 by next Friday, or I'm going to live peacefully for the rest of my life. Not knowing cerebral worldly things, but knowing with a capital K, a gnosis, that you are source, spirit, and substance, and that you have the authority to command the provision of whatever the thing is that you need. You have that Christed authority to call for the provision of what it is that you need, knowing I am provision, knowing I am provided for, knowing I am held in that same field of abundant possibility that is the delicious love that God has for you. So number one, knowing, and number two, allowing Manna to be, allowing it to become. Remember in Genesis, is it 1:3 something? He says, let there be light. He doesn't make the light. He says, let there be light. So the most important dynamic when it comes to something actually converting and becoming so is the allowing of it. To be so liberated from your own outlining of how things must occur, being liberated from that outlining so that new sand dunes can take shape for you. Do you remember that visualization of the sand dunes of the Sahara being made up of trillions, infinite adamantine particles that become the body of the sand dunes, and they undulate and change according to the wind, according to the breath of God, the spirit of God. And so for you to allow new things to come to form, to allow manna to become a real resource for you, you cannot be attached to your outline of what wealth looks like. So those are the two dynamics, right? You activate manifestation by knowing that it's there and letting it become. So those are the basics. Now, today we're going to look at the principles for stewardship. Stewardship is important because that's what allows magnetism. Things can't be attracted to something that isn't there. In order for it to be there, it needs to be stewarded. It needs to be managed appropriately, right? To be managed in accordance with true spiritual law and energetic dynamics. So that's what we're going to be talking about, stewardship for magnetism. So we have to understand the significance of spiritual law. We have to respect spiritual law and know how to apply it for wealth generation and legacy impact, right? Legacy impact being that aspect of wealth that has longevity. God has longevity. God is not just in the moment, God is also forever. So longevity is a part of true sovereignty. And therein lies the need for spiritual law, because spiritual law allows us guardrails that give us vertical freedom, if not horizontal freedom. Now, when I speak about freedom, I know that you are an infinite spiritual co-creative essence, but righteous structure is important to get anything done at all in our 4 dimensions of space and time, because we live in a process reality. So there are limitations to how we experience manifestation, and we need to honor what those limitations are in order to be aligned with them. So you can get somewhere in your ascension with the sort of, I'm a floaty dandelion seed in the great cosmic breath of universal Mother Father Spirit. I'm free to be and free to see. You can get somewhere with that, you can. But as a floaty seed, all your potential is locked until you ground and take root. Then your potential can be realized. Floating on the wind is nice to see and be, but you will not grow. And what we're talking about here is sovereign legacy wealth. So the same thing applies to manna. When you provide a righteous structure for manna to actualize within and through, then you will see the seed of potential become form. Yes? So this is taking infinite wealth, infinite spiritual provision, and allowing it to take form through a righteous structure that will help it actualize and become, so that you can now see your wealth, and not only that, but you can direct it for its intended purpose. Listen to this lovely bit from Ecclesiastes 5:19. Everyone to whom God has given wealth and possessions and power to enjoy them, to accept his lot and rejoice in the toll, this is the gift from God. So that means you have been given this authority to yield manna. You have been given possessions, as in the substantive form of manna. You have been given the power to enjoy them, the awareness to enjoy them. So to accept what you have, to rejoice in the work that you do to produce and generate all of that delicious goodness, that is the gift from God. So if you're longing for the harvest, be the one who accepts and rejoices in what is. That's Ecclesiastes 5:19. And we're going to get a really good piece of meat from Ecclesiastes today. I'm going to give you a really delicious, chunky, lovely yumminess. Are you ready? But first, I'm going to tell you about what Ecclesiastes is. It's a really powerful teaching in the Old Testament, in the Hebrew Bible, and it's really famous for its summary at the beginning and at the end. Hevel, hevel, everything is hevel. Now, most English Bibles translate hevel as meaningless. So it sounds like meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher, utterly meaningless. Everything is utterly meaningless. And that is a good teaching to help us detach from the idea that anything substantive has any innate meaning other than what we ourselves place into it. And yet, meaningless does not quite capture the heart of the teaching, because hevel actually translates more correctly to vapor or smoke. That slightly shifts the meaning of the teaching, doesn't it? Vapor, vapor, says the teacher. Utterly vapor. Everything is vapor. So hevel is used 38 times in the book of Ecclesiastes to show us that everything manifest is fleeting and temporary, and that all of life, like smoke, appears to be solid until you try to grab onto it and then nothing's there. So you can be enjoying the delicious beauty and goodness in one moment, and then in the next moment things fall apart. So chasing the manifest expression of wealth is like chasing the wind, it says in Ecclesiastes. So just chasing the wind. Because as we learned last week, all things manifest are merely spirit expressed as substance, as ephemeral as the Sahara sand dunes undulating in the wind of God's breath. So what can we do then? If everything is an ephemeral vapor, and all the effort I put into converting manna and having wealth is utterly meaningless, what can I do then? How can I be of use? So I'm going to teach you to weave the wind today. I'm going to teach you to corral the spirit. And it's all embedded within the teaching today on principle. So first things first, let's get the basics out of the way. We're going to do this quick fire because I know you've already got this. So be present, lean in, focus, because we're going to go quick. And now if you have read Think and Grow Rich, or you follow Abraham Hicks, or you've seen The Secret, or you've practiced the law of attraction, and you say everything is energy, then you understand the basics, right? So we're going to do that really quick. So here we go. Everything in the universe is a trinity, is an elemental trinity, distinct from one another: source, spirit, and substance. They are distinct nodes of creation, but they are all one. So this is God. This is what God is. She says, confidently defining God. This is exactly what it is. But let's say that the whole universe is source, spirit, and substance. Source is consciousness. That's the seed. That's what has the authority to command the spirit to move substance. So creation occurs always consciousness, energy, and manifestation. That's how we see things working. That's how we know that mind is over matter. And because of that, you are, therefore, if all things are that, then so are you. So here is all things expressed as this field we call God, which is all knowing, all loving, and all existence, which means you must be a strand of that expressed in its entirety, because in no way can you be separate from all things, because you are a part of all things. So you are naturally created in the image of God with the same spiritual power to create possibility, and for that possibility to be made manifest through your framework of consciousness. Your framework of consciousness is made up of all the creative declarations that you've made agreement with, including all those agreements you've made about wealth, what it looks like, how it comes into your life, how much you're worthy of, etc., etc. All of those are creative limitations in a field of potential that are expressed as energy through your thought waves, heart waves, and biofield, through your electromagnetic output. The creative spirit moves through your framework of consciousness, creating a projection of energy which is imprinted into a shared infrastructure, and the fabric of life forms itself according to that projection. So therefore, if you have a rich dad, you have a rich life. If you have a poor dad, you have a poor life, etc., to quote that title. And so therefore, we know that if you want to experience true sovereign wealth out here in the real world, there needs to be an enriched and thoroughly wealthy diamond core, because that is how creative spirit can manifest through your framework of consciousness and truly become that enriched and thoroughly wealthy life. So you build up the storehouse of your capacity, the storehouse in heaven, as Jesus says. You build up the storehouse of your capacity through goodness, through righteous service, and grateful love for what is. If you're in grateful love for what has already been made manifest, then that is the energy that you're infusing into the fabric of form. Yes? So the more you love and the more you're in devotion and in service, the greater the potential is for wealth to be made manifest through your framework of consciousness. Because when you're in mercy, mercy is in you. When you're in grace, grace is in you. When you're in healing and devotion are in you. What a miracle that is. But in your judgment, there is no wealth. There's no wealth in your judgment. In your criticism and complaining, there is no wealth. In your impatience, there is no wealth, because impatience is literally a spell creating it is not here. Let that land. When you're impatient, you are knowing it is not here. Wow. So patience is one of the great medicines for your wealth, to know that it is here, to be gently appreciative and in devotion for what already is. That's the fastest way for you to manifest what you're longing for. Yeah, impatience is it is not here. So, like I say, in gentle, simple appreciation for what God has already done and who you have already become, there is wealth abundantly. In your assurance that creation works from consciousness to energy to form, in that assurance, you will see your needs met and your desires blossom moment to moment in the way that it is. If you are assured that this is how it works, and you know that this is how it works, then that knowing is projected into form, and form responds by providing you all your needs all the time. That's infinite wealth. So we ask the question, what is it? What is it? Look and see what's greening in your life, see what's becoming in your life, look for the things that are becoming, that is growing wealth, and see your creation and know that it is good. That's what God did that. He said, let there be light, and he saw the light, and he knew that it was good. So look for the manna, ask what it is, let it reveal itself, know it, and know that it is good. Okay, that's the basics. That is basic spiritual principle for abundance. Now, let's say you're sovereign. Let's say you've got all that, right? And it's okay if you're still practicing. I am. Everyone is. But let's say you pretty much got that. If you clocked it, it's in. You do your gratitude. You do your energy hygiene. You do your vision boards. You meditate, you keep yourself relatively good, in good working order. You're sovereign. You know you're abundantly worthy. You're getting the hang of remembering that you're never actually in lack, and you frequently see provision manifest in some way or another. Okay, so that's the basics. And now we graduate from the basics into stewardship. Okay, so now we've moved out of elementary awakened manifestation. Now we're moving into high school. Let's learn how to actually steward this. Okay, when it comes to stewardship, wait a minute, before I teach, do you remember why we're talking about stewardship? Because if we don't steward the manna, it becomes hevel, just vapor. Here one moment, gone the next. Wow, I manifested $20,000, but I have no idea where it is. Where's it gone? Hevel, chasing the wind. Stewardship creates a spiritual corral for that essence to remain, so that by magnetism it grows and swells and is a part of your ascension. Your ascension is integral. It is a holistic thing, and all things in your ascension, including your wealth, is to grow. That's how you know that you're in integrity. That's being in the kingdom. So one of the key words in stewardship, write this down, key phrase, actually, it's not a word, it's a phrase. Write this down, fit for purpose. Write it down, get your favorite pen, pick it up, fit for purpose. Okay, now pretend you're a sea captain. There you are. You've gone through all the training. You've gone through many missions, and you've finally been promoted. Now you are sovereign, right? You're a captain, you're a sea captain. And the admiral of your fleet puts you in charge of the flagship. And he says, "Steward this ship well, captain." And you say, "Yes, sir, I will." And then you take the ship and you donate it to the British Museum for all to view and enjoy for generations and generations to come. The admiral is not pleased. That's not what the ship was for. The whole fleet is compromised. "But sir, I'm stewarding the ship." No, you're not. It's not fit for purpose. So when you've been placed in charge of wealth, when you're in the possession of wealth and you've been placed in charge as the captain of it, whether it's money, time, physical fitness, connections and community, the appropriate use of that wealth is fundamental to your stewardship. What you don't steward becomes hevel, and you are not there, therefore you don't have the capacity to manage that amount of money. You will be able to convert the amount of manna that you have the capacity to use mindfully. So wrapped up in appropriate use are respect, integrity, and workability in the 3D, right? 4D, including time, workability within space and time. Respect means respect for the spirit and substance of manna, respect for the divine sacred thing this is that you now have, this wealth that you have, and respect for the ordained authority that you've been given to wield it. It's like the captain having respect for his uniform. Don't go out and get drunk and behave like an idiot in the ports. Have respect for the authority that you've been given. Right? That's what sailors do, I think. I saw that on Popeye or something. Anyway, so have respect for the authority that you've been given to steward whatever that unit of wealth is that you're in charge of now, right? Respect also for the dynamic nature of creation. Respect for the movement that's needed to sustain spiritual balance in all things, including your wealth. So whether you're thinking about wealth as body or as money or as whatever it is, understanding that that wealth is dynamic, it is in movement, and you need to be in respect of that movement, in alignment with that movement, in order to be in true wealth. It also means respect for the body of Christ, which forms not only Manna, but also the ones that you're here to serve. It is disrespectful use of your wealth to direct it in such a way that it isn't respectful to the ones that you're here to serve. And integrity means that all working parts are in order and in their right place. It means that you know your numbers, whether they're black or whether they're red. It means you know what's on your to-do list, even if you don't know how to do it. It means that things are in order, that things have been put, the right thing in the right place. Now, integrity doesn't mean perfection, because that too is hevel. That too is meaningless, ultimately, as the sand dunes of creation shift. But it does mean that you've completed the things that needed completion, and that you're tending to things that you needed to tend to, and that you're being in an honest and open way in respect of the whole. And workability in the 4 dimensions shows respect for and integrity in relation to the shared infrastructure that you're participating in. So let's see if you've heard something like this before. I want to be an angel healer, and I want to work with homeless, drug-addicted mothers, and I want to charge my worth and make $20,000 a session. Or some variation of that, right? Sure, that ideal is a conceivable potential in the universe of all things, but it isn't a workable outline in the actual reality that you're hoping to have an impact on. If you want to participate with a shared reality and be a light worker, be a Christ disciple, be an apostle of truth and bring greater truth into the system, then you've got to be in a workable way with that system. And by the way, we will talk more about the practicalities of spiritual profession in the 4th and final week of this series. So if you're not stewarding your wealth in a way that it respects its true purpose, and the wealth is not integrous to who you are and what God is doing through you, or if your imagined wealth ideals are not workable in the structure of your holy life, then your wealth will always be a fleeting, ephemeral, like vapor. This too is hevel. And we all know the difference between these feelings, right? Feel into this. Oh, I can't believe I just spent $100. Where did it all go? Or, wow, that was the best $100 I ever spent. So it's the same amount. It's the same transaction that's occurred, but an entirely different essence. The first is hevel. Where did it all go? And the second is Manna, because Manna flourishes and nourishes everything that it touches. Okay, so know your core values, right? If you want every penny that you spend, or every minute of your time that you spend, or every droplet of your love that you give, if you want that to be appreciated and appreciate, then it needs to be directed in the right way. Don't put the flagship in the museum, put it at the helm of the fleet. So what is your money for? What is it for? Know your core values. You must know what matters most to you. Now, let's say my family life matters more to me than my social status. If I then spend my time and my money advancing my social status instead of deepening my family bond, then I'm not stewarding my wealth well, even if those were logically rational investments in the 3D world. I'm investing that money into an alternative reality. I'm not investing it into my true. It's not going into my true life. I'm spending that money on some alternative reality that has nothing to do with who I really am and how I really serve. When you invest anything into an alternative reality or into the manifest structural form for the sake of something that is fleeting and ephemeral, then you will not feel fulfilled. Because like smoke, You've tried to convert your wealth into something you can't grab. You've converted it into something that you can't grab. It's hevel. This too is meaningless. So you need to direct your knowing and your thoughts and your words and your actions and your money and your time and your love into your core values. The core values is how God is imprinting the world through you. We do have teachings on how to discover and formulate your core values. So let us know if you need help finding those teachings in the Oasis. But whoever you are, one thing I know for true, fundamental to your core values, your collection of core values, fundamental to that is your current mission, your assignment, your purpose, your vocation, the thing that you're called to do right now, your prime directive. Are you an activist, a healer, a teacher, a humanitarian, a disruptive catalyst, a peace bringer, a builder, architect, mechanic, cultivator, harvester? If your job is to heal the wounded, then it's a total waste of your wealth to spending it on tearing down the patriarchal hierarchy, even if it's a noble cause. Or if your job is to tear down the patriarchal hierarchy, then it's a total waste of your wealth trying to spend your life healing all the wounded. So you don't need to feel bad about not spending your wealth in the areas where you're not called to go. Even if they're good causes, when you're throwing your money in that direction, hevel. So understanding the core function of how you serve, what is the thing that you are in this beautiful, diverse mechanism of shared infrastructure, right? Because we're not afraid of structure, we're serving in structure. Understanding that function gives you enormous clarity on what you're investing in, where your money should go, what your fit for purpose really looks like. And if you're in the Oasis, you can use the Unicorn Protocol to get clarity on that. Again, let us know if you need help finding it. Manna also becomes hevel when it's used in meaningless, mindless ways. Did you know? Here's a fact. In 2020, Americans spent $44.9 billion on drunk purchases. 44.9 billion bucks on drunk purchases, right? Unconscious spending of your time, of your money, of your friendship, of your strength, of your youth. That's where waste is. And if you're stuck in a robotic lifestyle of spending whatever it is that you're spending to uphold whatever the lifestyle is that you think you need to construct for yourself, this quickly becomes mindless. Not mindful, mindless, meaningless, hevel, fleeting. You'll look back and you say, where's all my money gone? Where's all my time gone? Where's my strength gone? This too is meaningless. Of course, you're going to spend money on paying whatever bills you've made agreement to pay. Make agreement to pay bills that actually serve your core values and pay them in the spirit of absolutely loving the miracle of being able to turn on the electricity and say, let there be light at the flick of a switch. In delight for the water that flows from my faucet, in deep gratitude that I don't have to be the one that drives my trash to the landfill. I've been there. I had to do that. And I really love the fact that I can pay bills. That means that I no longer have to be the one who does that. Mindful spending of whatever it is that your wealth is, time, strength, cash, beauty, mindful spending of that is devotion. That is love making, because it's seeding your love into the growth. So know what matters most to you and know how your current spending enhances those things. If you do that, you will steward the true essence of Manna, and your wealth will be fit for purpose. So if you want a practical takeaway, let's start there. Go and know what your core values are. Sit down and understand what matters most to you. And then go over your expenses, whether it's time or whether it's cash. Go over your expenses and know how those expenses are, in fact, enhancing or supporting or in some way flourishing your core values. Now you're a steward of true Manna, and your wealth will be fit for purpose. Take a little breather, sip of water. There's a lot, right? Can you manage some more? There's a little more to come. Good, 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 good. Yes, yes, we're all hungry here. More, please. So this is a spiritually true structure that you can use to organize your stewardship and use of wealth, okay? So now I've assumed you're sovereign. So I've assumed you are tending to, you have tended to or are tending to what you need to tend to in the diamond. So I'm assuming that you're on that. I'm assuming that we've got relatively good authority here in the fourth dimensions. Excuse me. So making an assumption of that. Now we're also going to make assumption that you know your core values as well. So you know what matters most to you, and you've gone through your expenses and you've made sure that they're all directed into those core values. And if they're not, then you're either going to adjust them or you're going to look at whether or not there's something missing in terms of, are they really enhancing your core values, right? Now we have a really rich, nourished soil for manifestation. So now there's goodness coming up and through. Now what we want to do is like really corral that. So this is a structure that you can use to organize your stewardship and your use of wealth. So this is how to spend. Number one, the first 10% goes to God. This is your tithe. Putting God first is the first principle in everything, from the Mosaic Decalogue, right? Put the Lord thy God before all things, to the first pillar of Reiki in Gashur, all the way through to Jesus's specific teaching about abundance. Put the Lord thy God, put the kingdom of God first, seek ye first the kingdom, and then all these things will be added. It's always to invest first and foremost into the source of all your abundance. Give your body to God and do some manual labor. Give your time to God and listen to a stranger's story. Give your money to God and help a local charity. Give your love to God and thank him for the goodness. Thank you for the goodness. Thank you for the goodness. So you give your first 10% into God. This is seeding and watering and feeding your own abundance field as well. You understand that? Where your focus goes, that's what energy enhances. So what you invest in first is getting your best. Invest in the very source of your abundance. Give God your first 10%. You can either support a local church, or you can find a charity that you support, or you can help a friend, whatever it might be. Be generous and trust that he can do more with your 10%, first 10%, than you can do with the remaining 90%. If you put your first 10% into God, you will see a tenfold return. And the Bible even challenges you to test it. It even says, if you don't believe this, give it a punt. Try it out, because it's a foolproof system. It's a guarantee. We did. My husband and I started consciously tithing in April 2021, and our wealth exponentially increased very rapidly. Here's a lovely bit. This is a quote that Matt put in the Oasis chat the other day. I've got to put it in here as well because it's so good. This is G. Alexander Orndorff. That's the dude. And the quote is, "No man can become rich without enriching others." Anyone who adds to prosperity must prosper in turn. It's a spiritual law. When you put your first 10 into the body of God, it is the body of God that grows in your life. And manna is literally the body of God. Yes, we have others testifying here in the chat. There are others saying that, yep, they testify. When you try tithing, when you do the first 10% into God, you will see your wealth exponentially increase. Good. That's number one. Number two, oh, I hope you like this one. Pay your tax. Give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and participate with our shared reality. This isn't about just get the tax man off your back. This is about participating in our shared workable system of exchange, and take delight in the society that you pay your taxes for, or that your taxes pay for. So when the National Guard send thousands of men down to South Florida to help rescue hurricane survivors, be grateful. When you hear the fire truck sirens go by and you know that someone's burning house is going to be saved, kiss your wallet and say, I helped pay for that. You know, and I know that there are things that your taxes pay for that you don't appreciate too, and you do have socio-political influence that you can use to change those things if you're so called. But in the meantime, pay your taxes. Jesus said, give to God what is God's and give to Caesar what is Caesar's. Next, this is my favorite bit, the next 10%, you invest. Oh, I don't do stocks and shares and cryptocurrency. No, invest in up-leveling, invest in expansion, invest in improvement, invest in the ontological direction of becoming. Place your wealth in line with the law of increase, in line with ascension. So maybe you buy new plants for the bathroom and you elevate the vibration of your environment and the whole world lifts and your point of attraction lifts. Or maybe you invest in maintaining your car and you discover that there was $6,000 in equity in it. That happened to us this week. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Or maybe you invest in your own business or someone else's business. You are placing a bet into God that you believe in growth here. You are saying, I'm putting money into moreness. I believe in growth. 10%. And the remaining 60% or so, depending on where you live on the tax bracket scales of the world, the remaining 60-ish% is directed into the stuff of your life, into the items and facilities and experiences that matter most to you. Your family life, your electricity, your lovely new warm socks, your delicious food. So while this isn't financial advice, guys, go and talk to your professional advisor. This is still good and true structure for appropriate energetic stewardship and use of that endless resource that manna is. Okay, so that was a chunky one. Who remembers the nugget, the bit of meat that I promised you in the beginning? Put it in the comment if you remember the word I gave you from Ecclesiastes to help us distinguish between manna and meaningless wealth. Hevel. Hevel, hevel. Everything is hevel. Yes, well done, well done, well done. Yep, hevel. Now, before we leave off for today, remember last week I told you about jam jar economics. Hands up if you remember jam jar economics. Good. Yep. For an adventurer in Christ, for someone who is a true spiritual pioneer and prepared to go where God says, prepare to follow God's call into unknown frontiers of life, to be an apostle of becoming, to be a promise of everlasting newness, it's very handy to know jam jar economics. Now, traditional economics, money, works really well in a shared infrastructure, right? We all agree that $100 is worth $100. We all agree on that. It's a very simple language for us, and it allows really smooth exchange in a shared infrastructure. But in a fluid life path, which is what you're on if you're in ascension, and you're in ascension if you're watching this teaching. So for a fluid life path that transcends dimensions of experience, you need a different currency, because energy is very often moving faster than the traditional currencies of cash can keep up with. So if you're transcending different dimensions fast, it can very often, you don't have time in this new vibrational reality to create a sustainable business before it's time for you to move on into the next reality. So you have to have access to jam jar economics. So $100 is worth $100, but a jar of lovely homemade blackberry and lavender jam is worth whatever it's worth to the one that you're serving at the time. And if you've shown God that you are brave enough to say yes to the opportunities, and you can transcend cash consciousness and allow other forms of substance to be mana, and you're a devoted listener, so you can hear the opportunities arising as you're in shared relation with the world, then you can participate in jam jar economics. And that will unlock a completely new universe of possibility for you. This system has worked for me everywhere, from very low skill things like when we needed when we weeded the thistles in an Episcopal priest's garden in exchange for using the kitchen in her airplane hangar to make chocolates in. It's a very bizarre sort of a thing, but we lived in the tent at the time in the wilderness, off-grid. We had access to no cash at all whatsoever. We knew we could make some chocolates to pay for our rent that day. So where were we going to do that when you live in the woods and you cook on a fire? We ended up in an Episcopal church, and the priest said, "You can use my airplane hangar. It has a kitchen in it. Would you please weed the thistles in my garden in exchange?" Extraordinary opportunities occur when you can listen for them. So we did it. We've done it like that. We've also played jam jar economics in more skilled things. We've exchanged Reiki for violin lessons for our daughter, or in even higher skilled professional things, trading clinical ontology and interpretive phenomenological analysis for neurology and cranial sacral therapy. Because you see, in all universes, in all geographies, in all expressions of reality, you can listen for and be present to what is needed by the one that God has brought before you. And you can know how you can help. And then you can let a merging of service be known. But jam jar economics don't work if you're in linear mindsets. If you decide that these jam jars cost $8, maybe they do, but now you have to go to a market and you have to sell many jam jars for $8. You're still in linear consciousness. I'm talking about a sort of an economy where there's a merging of service, where there's a sharing of benefit and growth. Okay, so I've got a little bit of time. I'm going to share a story from my real life. Matt always gets a little bit embarrassed. Matt is one of the students in the group here, and he's my husband, and he always gets a bit embarrassed because he never knows exactly which story I'm going to share. But we participated in the jam jar economy for 3 years. We made $11,000 in 2018. That was what our entire life, how much cash we had in our entire life. $11,000 in 2018, 14,000 in 2019, a little bit more in 2020. And in that time, we traveled as a family of 4 across the States. We lived in mansions, we lived in a barn, we apprenticed with priests and priestesses. We watched the Milky Way fly over the sky while we meditated. We exchanged by creating absolutely delicious melt in the mouth, dark raw chocolate truffles infused with essential oils, frankincense and orange, rosemary and lemon, lavender and valerian. We performed hands-on healings, we did teaching circles and workshops, and we helped people who needed help. And there was one lady's husband who was dying of cancer. She was the Episcopal priest, and her hips hurt too much to weed the thistles in the garden. So that's how that exchange occurred. And we used the chocolates that we made in the kitchen of the airplane hangar of the Episcopal priest that we were weeding thistles for. We used those chocolates to pay our rent that week. So we were out there living on the canvas of the raw outback land, apprenticing with an earth priestess, and we were learning the elemental ways of the wild. And we were called to go to that Episcopal church in Delta. We attended the service, which, bless them, was the most boring experience of our lives. It was the sort of church service where they go like this: I will be in joy and delight forever and ever and ever. That kind of joy, eh? But bless them, it was an incredibly boring service, but the coffee hour afterwards was lovely, and we met all these beautiful souls, including a woman who was to attend surgery the next day. And she asked me to lay hands on her and give her Reiki, so I did. And the next week she came back and she said that the recovery from the surgery had gone so very well, and she knew that the healing was a part of it. So she brought me 12 duck eggs as a thanks. Well, I gave 6 duck eggs to the priestess of the land where we lived, and I kept 6 for my family, and we cooked them over the fire while the coyotes howled in the mountains. And the next weekend, Matt and I just could not bear the thought of going back to that church. So we went to another church, a Universalist church, completely different denomination on the other side of the wilderness. And it was a completely different experience. My children loved it. It was a harp playing, there were fairy lights, it was a little more lively. And we met a really nice family there who said, we live in a tent too. You can come to our yurt and cook pizzas in the stone oven. And we said, yes, all right. So that evening, cooking outside in the woods in this family's tent in the middle of nowhere, we're having a lovely communion and sharing some stories and stuff. And then suddenly the woman says, oh, here comes my mum. And who is waddling up the walkway but the duck egg lady? So we all had a wonderful meal together. And there was the abundance of delicious synchronicity and beautiful, beautiful gifts from nature. So that's just one example of jam jar economics and the absolutely unlikely realities that can be unlocked for you when you're present to what is needed and you know how you serve. Thank you ever so much, everyone, for coming today. I know this was a chunky one, so feel free to go back and watch the replay. If you want to study deeper with us or unwrap these teachings even more, please join the Oasis if you haven't already. We're a beautiful community of incredible people. And if you do join the Oasis, not only will you have communion before and after these teachings, but you'll also be in group study on Tuesdays and drop-in coaching on Thursdays as well. And you'll have access to a lovely, lovely, rich resource of teachings. So thank you for coming today. Now I turn off the live stream and I open the table for our students in the Oasis. Thank you all very much.